You're listening to The Watchers, the show where two women from opposite ends of New Jersey watch movies and TV about New Jersey.
About fucking Jersey.
The most about New Jersey that there is.
The most New Jersey ever. I was even in New Jersey.
You were in New Jersey?
I feel like I'm shouting.
You're just Jersey strong. You're so Jersey strong right now.
I am. I feel like my veins have been pumped full of gasoline that someone else pumped.
20 regular. You just filled up right with it.
No, I filled it with regular. But
oh, fancy.
Yeah, well, in the old days it was like $3 a regular, please. But
three. I've got was this $3.75.
Yeah. No. I'm a big shot now. I can fill my tank. I did get gas purposely in Jersey so someone else could pump it for me.
Hell yeah. Yeah. The way you deserve.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this week's a little different.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
This is so random. It's not random, but it's like it feels random based on like everything we normally do. But
this is the most
this is the most us thing we could do.
Yeah. So just a couple of things. Jody and I were just 2 days ago. Mm-hmm. We spent the day in the Atlantic Highlands watching almost every Kevin Smith movie.
We didn't quite make it.
In a row?
Yeah. We didn't quite make it.
No. We made it more than halfway at Kevin Smith's Vulgarthon, which is an event where tiny little bit of background. Kevin owns a movie theater called Smodcastle Cinemas. Mm-hmm. Saturday was his birthday. He showed all of his movies in the View Askewniverse, so Clerks, Mallrats, Chasing Amy, Dogma, Clerks 2, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, Clerks 3, Jay and Silent Bob the Reboot. Am I missing one?
I think you flopped the last two.
Oh, okay, yeah. So flip those, reverse it. Which is like 9 movies or something like that.
Yeah.
8 movies. I don't know how to count.
I think it's 9.
9.
Yeah, math is not my strong suit either.
But so we're gonna kind of talk about the movies. I know we already covered Chasing Amy, and we've talked about maybe doing a Kevin Smith series, but I think we're just gonna kind of split the difference and sort of talk about the View Askewniverse as a whole.
That as much of it as we actually watched yesterday.
Right, exactly.
Because I think we talked about this. I haven't seen Clerks 3, and I don't think you have either.
I haven't either. I
do plan to, but
yeah. But other note is we're mostly going to talk about the movies themselves and maybe a little bit of what we learned. If you want to hear about the actual event and what happened, what it was like, you can head over to New Jersey's The World, because I think either last week or the week before, over on the Patreon, you and I recapped the event with Chris Gethard, who wasn't there, but we talked with him about it and filled him in on everything.
On what he missed by wimping out and not coming. So it started at 10 a.m.
Did start at 10 a.m. with Clerks. Obviously, if you haven't seen all of Kevin Smith's movies, this episode might not be for you. We're not doing a recap of every movie, but we're not worried about spoilers, obviously.
Mm-mm.
We did cover, I was going to say, I don't know how much background our listeners need on the Kevin Smith universe, because we did cover Chasing Amy, which is the third in his series. But yeah, it did start at 10 a.m. for us. He was running 3 different screens.
I think it ended up being 4, or was it just 3?
I think it was just 3. I think it was 9, 10, and 11.
Okay.
But ours started at 10 a.m.
Yeah. He was there.
He was there immediately.
He was doing Q&As after every single movie, which is apparently it was not a surprise to anyone other than us, because I hadn't looked into this at all. I was just like, cool, I'm going to watch all the movies and maybe he'll be there at the end. But
I knew there was going to be a Q&A. I thought it would happen somewhere in the middle, but he was just hanging out.
Yep.
And so the first movie we watched was Clerks, which is one I have never seen on a big screen. I was wondering what it would feel like to watch these movies that I've seen so many, especially knowing my ADHD, where the idea of just having to sit and watch a movie, I wasn't sure how, but it was truly delightful.
I was so worried about that exact same thing. Like, I made us sit on the aisle because I cannot sit still for longer than like an hour without getting antsy. But it was just so much fun. Like, I wondered if it was going to be more reverent, more Rocky Horror. It ended up being somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I was surprised. It seemed like it took people, again, I know this isn't the point of this really, but I was expecting people to be way more, and I kept thinking of moments where it would have worked.
Yes, to be
really
shouty.
well. Yeah.
Yes. I know. I kept mumbling things under my breath, trying to encourage people around me.
Yeah, but yeah. There are just certain things where it's like, I know if I'm home watching one of these movies with somebody who isn't obsessed with them, they're going to be so annoyed by me, but it felt okay to do it there.
I was sitting next to you and thinking to myself, Andrea may hate me after this because I couldn't stop.
We were both doing it. It's difficult not to. And my guess is probably everybody was. We were just all behaving ourselves, so we weren't all hearing each other.
Right.
But at one point, Kevin Smith, maybe you had gone to get like a drink or something, but Kevin was talking and he said right before Mallrats, he was like, every time a new character comes on the screen, you should scream and yell and make a big scene. It'll make it really fun. And nobody did.
No one did it?
Nope. So I was surprised that everybody was as well behaved, even when they were encouraged to be a little less behaved. So I don't know what that was about.
I wonder if it has to do with the fact that almost everyone there was probably over 40.
Yeah.
Or at least near 40, except for the one 17-year-old that was in our row, who I was really kind of concerned about.
It's so funny that you say that, because as I reminded you, every time you said there's a 17-year-old here, I was 10 years old when I saw, I guess I would have been 9 years old when I saw Clerks for the first time, because I saw Mallrats when it was, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So I don't know why you're worried about the 17-year-old.
I don't either, but there's something weird about, like...
What were you like at 17?
Yeah, this wouldn't have bothered me at all. It would have been no big deal. But to me, I think 17 is much younger than it was when I was 17. Like, in my brain. I'm not saying it actually is. I'm saying, to me, a 17-year-old is a child now. And when I was a 17-year-old, I thought I was a grown-up.
Right. And it's somewhere in between.
Right. Yeah.
But it's...
Yeah.
It
was also rather warm in our theater for the first half. Yeah. And so I think maybe people were just a little bit sluggish and trying not to expend too much energy.
Yeah.
Because I tried to sit as still as possible so that I didn't get too warm. The AC was on, but not working super well in the beginning.
Yeah.
So
but then it came around.
Yeah, no, it got a lot better.
It's funny because we just a couple of weeks ago watched Dawson's Creek. Mm-hmm. And I think you maybe even said in that recording when we were talking about how weird the teenagers talk, how hyperverbal they are, that Clerks feels just like that. It's like this is not how these people actually talk when they're hanging. You know what I mean? Like in real life, people talk, but...
Well, they're all speechifying the whole time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But like, so in introducing this first one, I was wondering, I know you've said that Dogma is your quote-unquote favorite.
It's the one I saw when I was 13, and it's the first one I saw in theater. So of course it's my quote unquote favorite. I don't know that it's not the best one.
We don't care about that.
Yeah.
But like, so I think my question is, does that mean that's the one that's the most important to you? Like as a developing person watching these movies?
That is a good question. Wow, that's really interesting, because I think everything you encounter when you are 13 years old is the most important thing to you.
Yes.
So there is that aspect of it. I think if I had been raised Catholic, this movie Dogma would have been the most important thing to me. I can just imagine what an annoying piece of shit I would have been as a 13-year-old Catholic child watching Dogma.
Oh my God.
And so because I really don't relate to that part of that movie. I just think it's smart and fun and whatever. We'll get to it. Yeah, I don't know that I could pick one. Wow, that's really hard. I just was so young for all of these that like they're all in my DNA.
The reason I ask is because if I had to pick one of these to be the only one I ever got to see ever again, it would be Clerks in a heartbeat without hesitation.
Ooh, okay, that's 100%. A different question.
I know, but to me it's like it is by far the most important to me. Because of where I was when it came out. I was 19. I was working in a video store. I had just dropped out of college. I was a fucking disaster. I was reconnecting with my like hometown friends who reminded me a lot of these guys, you know, like my friends worked in places like convenience stores and bowling alleys. And, you know, I worked in a video store for $5 an hour. So like, I think it was so important to me.
Yeah. And just from like I think it's the most fun. I think it's the most quotable. I think it's the most, it still continues to surprise me every time I watch it, where I get like, oh, this part's coming up, and I get really excited for that.
Yeah.
And I think this might be, like, again, I don't know which is the most important to me, which is my favorite necessarily, but I think the one with the most replay value might be Clerks.
Because for me, what happens when you get to Mallrats and then the rest of them is he got enough success with Clerks that he started to get famous people.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as you put a famous person and put Kevin Smith's dialogue in their mouth,
it feels different.
It doesn't always work.
Uh-huh.
Some of them can make it sound like believable and some can't.
Mm-hmm.
And so the fact that there were no quote unquote stars in Clerks,
mm-hmm.
I mean, I am not like the person who's like, oh, it's so much more pure, whatever. But like, it feels like a real pure expression of something that was in his brain. And
mm-hmm.
then as soon as that got popular, and this is not a criticism of the other movies, I fucking love them.
Mm-hmm.
But once you put Ben Affleck in something and he tries to speak in Kevin Smith's dialogue.
It's funny that you say that, because he wasn't really anybody yet, right? Like,
yeah, but I don't know. I mean, Shannon Doherty, like,
Good Will Hunting comes out after Mallrats.
Yeah. I still feel like I knew who Ben Affleck was. I don't know how, but I just feel like there's something that happens between going from, a movie that you put all your friends in to a movie where you actually get to like cast people.
Mm-hmm.
And not that it makes it worse. It's probably to what most people makes it better, but to me, it felt like just a different thing. And I love all of them, but to me, if I had to pick one that meant the most to me, it's easily Clerks.
Right. That makes sense.
Easily.
Yeah. I think that makes so much sense. He might say the same thing. Although he did say, interestingly, that the first movie that feels like a Kevin Smith movie to him is Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, which I thought was
interesting.
Yeah. But the way we could save it. But I thought that was really interesting, the way he talked about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Clerks, I don't know. I don't know what we need to say about it because every movie after that is sort of talking back to the movies before it. And so this one being the inciting one.
For me, just seeing it big was really important. Seeing it like I noticed so many like background details that I don't normally notice when I watch it, because I've seen it so many times that I'm kind of half talking along with it, half paying attention. But seeing it that huge, I did get to be the I have a comment, not a question person in that first Q&A. Which
you did. It wasn't usually I want to strangle people who do that, but yours was relevant.
Me too.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been to enough conferences. I hate that person, but I had to tell him about the working in the video store when this came out and like replacing the preview tapes with this movie because
well, then it turned out you were speaking for probably about 20% of the people in the audience.
It turns out a lot of people that were there worked in video stores at some point.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was fun. He was a couple of things.
Mm-hmm.
The questions in general were actually good, which is not often the case. And no offense to Kevin Smith fans, I count myself among you. I did not have high hopes for what kind of questions our people would be asking. But they were, for the most part, great.
Yeah, they were.
And a lot of them were ones where he was like, nobody's ever asked me that before, which is amazing because he has done a lot of talking about these movies with people.
Endlessly.
Yeah.
Endlessly.
And so somebody asked, the first question of the day was, when you can hear the porno, the different
oh my God, I forgot about this.
In the background. The person asked, did you record an actual, were you playing the sound of an actual porno or did you record porno noises?
Yeah.
And Kevin was like, it was me. And I don't remember who he said, but probably Scott Mosier and Brian O'Halloran, maybe I think is who he said.
Yeah.
Just sitting around recording those noises. And so now I have to go back and watch the movie because I'm never paying attention to what they're actually saying.
No, and he said the thing that they realized later on was that they did too much dialogue.
Kevin Smith? Little dialogue heavy? Weird.
Shocking. Do you remember what the other questions were? I think one was about the one of the magazines that was in the store.
Yeah, somebody asked if, I forget which magazine, but if he'd placed it on purpose, if he was and Kevin was like, no, that just happened to be. But the thing that I thought was interesting is he was like, but later on, that's absolutely something I would have done. Realizing what another layer of storytelling that
Totally.
your scene setting could be. So I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
Another question was, what does Bob buy in the convenience store? Because he buys a box of sugar with a little figurine.
Yes.
And the person thought it was Daffy Duck. Kevin said it's actually Plucky Duck because this would have, because of Tiny Toons. This was something that I thought was really nice, is he just seemed delighted by questions. Because that's not, I understand that person being like, this is just something that's bothered me for years, but it doesn't really give you, I don't feel any different now knowing that. But Kevin was like, good eye that you even caught that, which is just
he was delighted by the questions.
Yeah.
I think the other one, I can't remember if this was during the Clerks Q&A or after, but somebody asked about the fight scene where all the candy and stuff gets thrown everywhere and they make a huge mess of the quick stop. And he told a fun story about how he had a handwritten log where he would write down every single thing that they ate, drank, broke, whatever. Because they were shooting in the middle of the night, I guess, and the owner came in the 6 a.m. and saw this giant mess and was like, "Oh no!" And he's like, "Don't worry, I'll pay for everything."
I wrote it all down. Yeah. Something that you might not know about Clerks is it was literally filmed in a convenience store that Kevin Smith worked in. He asked the owners, "Can we film a movie overnight?" When the stores closed, and they said sure. So the logbook he was writing in was literally the logbook where you might write I bought a candy bar and a soda on my break today, and then also had to list 500 Snickers bars or whatever.
Yeah, he said it was 2 pages of things that they busted or ate or broke or whatever.
That was just so fun because this movie again, these first few movies, I'm it felt to me like, what new thing could we learn at this point? But they're just there was more new stuff to learn.
Totally. And someone asked about one of the hockey jerseys that one of the kids was wearing.
Again, it just shows how much these movies mean to people, that they have these little details that that person has been I've been trying to figure out what that jersey is forever. And now, even though nobody else here might care about that, now I can finally ask the only person who might know the answer.
Exactly.
So that was really fun.
Yeah. And I was joking when we walked up to the theater about the line of guys in cargo shorts, but that is a lot of his audience is dudes in cargo shorts wearing hockey jerseys.
A lot of hockey jerseys. And but a genuinely sweet group of people. Yeah,
with
everybody
good,
was so
good
nice.
Questions. Yeah, everybody
good questions,
was really
nice people. It was lovely.
Yeah. So then we watched Mallrats. It was still pretty warm in there at this point. What was it like seeing this one on the big screen?
I mean, here's what was striking to me was the difference. Obviously, Clerks is so low budget. Mallrats is a little bit higher. But you really do see the difference between somebody sort of making a movie while figuring out how to make a movie versus making a movie with a little bit of a budget behind it. And you talked about actors. You obviously Ben Affleck, but this is our first Jason Lee. We really start to get those faces. It does feel different to watch. It doesn't feel as none of these movies feel like they can belong to you the same way that Clerks can, I think. And I think that's really obvious when you're watching it on the big screen. But it's still so Kevin's Silent Bob flying through the air in his little Batman mask on the big screen. It just doesn't.
I know.
Doesn't get better.
I'm not going to harp on this because we talked about this with Chasing Amy, but I will say that this was about the time when I started to get reminded of how some things haven't aged well in his films. And he knows this. This is not a cancellation or a teardown of Kevin Smith. He's talked about this with the Chasing Amy film that we talked about. And he's talked about this in other forums, but the use of the R word, the fact that, he's constantly called fat ass or some version of that by Jay, it's fine. I just want to point out that this is about the time where I started to be oh, right. Because of the famous fly fat ass fly line.
Yeah.
It's still a laugh line, but it's also oh, right.
It is interesting to watch which things sort of stay with the movies as they go. I had forgotten how long we continue to use the R word in Kevin Smith's movies.
Forever, it feels like. I know not forever, but it feels like it just went on and on and on.
It just kept. Also, the thing that will never stop, and I am often charmed by, but also it is a weird but okay, hold on. I'm going to not say often charmed by, because what I'm about to say is not what I'm charmed by. The thing that is so obvious when you watch these back to back to back is the like shorthand of, we've talked about Kevin Smith's movies are about men who are in love, like they just are.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that the way they express that is through casual homophobia.
Yeah. 100%.
And it is like a weird kind of homophobia, because it is not the homophobia that I'm also exhausted. The like shorthand in Hollywood of this person is homophobic because they're closeted and it makes them hate gay people. That's not what this is.
Yeah, that does come up in Chasing Amy more than anywhere else. But yeah.
But they're not, in general, like when they're making fun of each other for being gay, which they do all the time, it is, I don't know how this works. I don't understand it. And it sounds like I'm making excuses, but they're not making fun of gay. It's so weird. It's not making fun of gay people, like in a weird way.
Yeah, I know. It is. I mean, you know, we joked on the way home that he just needs to come out as bisexual and just get it over with. Because
exactly.
Like, especially when you get to the later movies, like he says more and he interacts more and he's more expressive as Silent Bob. And like, I remember the scene in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back where like the weird security guard wants Bob to blow Jay, and he's like, you wouldn't have done it. And he's like, no. And then like turns away and Bob looks at the camera. He's like, oh, yeah.
It's like,
it's so weird.
It is really weird, but in a way that is, I keep wanting to say charmed. It's so strange. Like, I can't think of anybody else who who's like has this sort of vocabulary where I would have patience for it at this point. But there's just something like oddly sweet about it.
I think it might, just for me anyway, have to do with the fact that like Kevin Smith has been a public personality for half of my life. And he's basically proven himself to be a good dude. And like a dude that's open to changing his opinion based on what other people tell him. And so that to me is, I've always believed and said that that's more important than like, if you make a mistake, it's how you accept feedback, you know? Some highlights from watching Mallrats in the theater. I never do not laugh at the sailboat.
It's so good.
I never don't laugh out loud. I remember those Magic Eye posters in the mall.
I can't see them. I told you that.
I know.
I've never seen one.
I am able to see them. I don't know why that is.
I think most people eventually can. I'm Willem 100%.
You haven't applied yourself enough. You gotta bring your lunch to the mall and just stand there.
If one more person tells me I have to look past my nose, I'm gonna fucking pull an absolute Willem. I'm so with him there.
Yeah, this is where we get like, they talk through some Star Wars fandom stuff in Clerks. This is where Marvel and Stan Lee become kind of the focus.
Okay. Speaking of Stan Lee.
Yeah.
The number of people who are no longer with us who are in these movies, I couldn't stop thinking about like, and some of them it's just a matter of like heartbreakingly Shannon Doherty, obviously we just lost her, and Kevin told us
oh my god, yeah, he told us right before Mallrats, I think, that she was going to be one of the special guests. It's just like, I cannot believe.
I know.
Yeah, that she's gone this soon. But
yeah, just really heartbreaking. And so, but she's an example of like, there are so many people that he has to be in his movies because he was already a fan of them and had grown. Stan Lee, George Carlin.
Yeah, we can talk about that later. Yeah.
George Carlin, Alan Rickman, where you like know Kevin Smith was like, I love these people, and if I can get them in my movie, I'm going to. And now we have Carrie Fisher, where we have these little moments of these people doing things they never would have done if Kevin Smith hadn't asked them to do it. And now we have these little like,
I
don't even know what the word is, but we're so lucky.
I know
that we have these little moments from these actors.
Well, and to talk about the time frame, I mean, Clerks came out 30 years ago this October, like exactly 30 years ago. And so obviously it makes sense that we've lost a bunch of people since then, but it's still like when you see it all together, it's kind of crazy.
It's crazy. But then there are just things about Mallrats that, like you said, the Magic Eye,
the dirt mall.
The dirt mall.
I got so excited. I swear to God, I'm glad nobody could see me in that theater, because I was literally like kind of jumping up and down in my seat and clapping my hands like a child when we got to the dirt mall.
I know. It's just so fun. Brody's outrage at the kid on the escalator is always funny to me.
God.
Like there's just so many things that just really hold up.
Yeah.
And some are just always a delight.
And some that don't.
And some that don't, certainly.
Fish the dish.
When we talked about whether or not to, I often feel like, I'm really glad we did. Obviously, I'm glad we did this because it was a fucking joy.
Yeah.
But it's also like I sometimes have felt like I still love Kevin Smith, despite the fact that the View Askewniverse, despite the fact that maybe I shouldn't. But even if you take out all of the stuff that hasn't aged so well, there's still so much genuinely good, funny, sometimes thoughtful, sweet stuff in these
100%. 100%. You know, I mean, watching the whole Trish the Dish thing and then the like prison rape joke at the end is like a little rough, but
yeah. The Trish the Dish is so Jody, I think the first time you and I ever talked face to face was on the Mallrats recap live stream from New Jersey is the World, where we talked about Trish the Dish.
And we talked about what it's like to watch and love Kevin Smith as a woman.
Yeah.
Because it is different.
Yes.
Like all of the guys that I know that love Kevin Smith, they may have some reservations about some of the things later on that don't hold up as well. But it's not the same as growing up loving these movies so much, but having to overlook certain things in them every single time on purpose.
The Trish the Dish thing doesn't make sense, though, because it's enough to get Shannon Hamilton arrested, but she publishes a book. She publishes a book.
Yeah.
Well, everybody should be in jail. Jody, everyone should be in jail. It makes that Kevin, that might be your biggest flaw. It's not even just the inappropriateness of it. It's that it lacks internal consistency. And that's a real problem for me.
Well, and just as an FYI or a little button on that, I'm looking at the Mallrats Wikipedia just to refresh myself. And in the extended cut, Jared is arrested for 19 FCC violations and broadcasting lewd or indecent images in a public forum.
Very funny.
There's a whole
that's also child porn. It's not just lewd. It's child pornography.
Yeah.
Everybody should be in jail.
Yeah.
We did learn that Sarah Michelle Gellar auditioned for Trish the Dish.
Yeah. Yeah. And that Kevin Smith has no memory of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else did we learn in the Q&A?
So someone asked why it was filmed not in New Jersey, which I think he's been asked before. I would be shocked if he hadn't. And he kind of explained for people that don't know about tax credits for filming and how it's actually been very hard to film in New Jersey over the years. And, you know, recently they've kind of played more nicely with productions. But for most of Kevin Smith's career, it was not as easy to do it in the state for more than, he said, for every movie they would get like a day or two in New Jersey to film.
But yeah, so this was it.
Yeah.
Now I don't remember. I should know even before this weekend where it was filmed, but somewhere in the Midwest.
Eden Prairie Mall in Minnesota somewhere.
Yeah.
And because the internet is a very weird place, when I just Googled Eden Prairie Mall, I came up with a YouTube video that premiered 18 hours ago.
Huh.
That is a video tour of the Eden Prairie Mall now.
Whoa!
Because it's been renovated again.
Amazing.
And there's also a link in the.
How does Rug Munchers look now?
There's also a link in the comments or in the description to photos of it in the 90s.
Incredible.
But yeah, Eden Prairie Mall.
We'll link to that for the true weirdos like us.
Yeah, apparently they tried to shoot at the Monmouth Mall in Eatontown, but both that and another mall that they tried objected to content in the film and refused to allow them to shoot there.
I can't imagine.
Yeah.
There's what's to object to in Mallrats?
Nothing. Yeah, no, the other thing I was looking up was just, have you seen the documentary Jasper Mall?
No. What's that?
Jasper Mall is a documentary that came out in 2020 that you listen to Doug Loves Movies sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you used to. Amy Miller is like the only reason that I still listen to that show every now and then whenever she's on. And she was obsessed with this Jasper Mall documentary for a long time. It's like super depressing, but it's about like the decline of, a formerly very popular mall.
Echelon Mall.
Echelon Mall?
That was my mall. It was a real mall and now is so sad.
Yeah, my malls I had 3. Because I
had 3 as well.
Yeah. Because I was Paramus adjacent. So we had lots of options. My hangout with my best friend and look for boys was Garden State Plaza. Mm-hmm. My actual shopping and Christmas shopping mall was Paramus Park. And then I had a secret love for the Dirt Mall, which was Bergen Mall, that had the villages in the basement, which if you don't know what that is, you should Google it because it's creepy as fuck. But it's like there was a basement in the Bergen Mall that was like all these little stalls of different vendors, and you could buy like baseball cards and weird tchotchkes, and they weren't stores. It was almost like a flea market in the basement.
That rules. I do love that you said if you don't know what that is. I know the Bergen County of you feels like everyone should know everything about Bergen County, but I promise none of our listeners know what that is.
I wouldn't say none. But yeah, there was also a chapel down there. It was a weird, yeah. I spent some time there because that's where my mom was like the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus.
I'm so glad that my memory is so bad that I get to learn that anew every time you mention it.
I wish I could forget it.
It's just so delightful.
I wish I could forget it.
My mall was the Echelon Mall. It was the mall I went to every Friday. It was the mall I had my first 3 jobs in. That mall was everything to me. But then about 10 or 15 minutes further away was the Deptford Mall, which was a step up. And sometimes I could get my mom to drive us to the Deptford Mall on the weekend. And then the Cherry Hill Mall was even further away. And Cherry Hill Mall was the fancy mall that we would like go to. Like that was the Christmas shopping, or like on my birthday, if my mom was like, where do you want to go? Like pick gifts out or whatever. I always wanted to go to the Cherry Hill Mall.
Yeah, weirdly enough, the Bergen Mall turned into the fancy mall, which is like quite the transformation.
Voorhees, Echelon Mall tried. They changed their name to the Voorhees Town Center, and everybody was like, no. Nice try.
This one also continues the obsession with Jaws, because TS wants to propose in front of the shark.
Yeah, when Jaws pops out of the water.
At Universal. Instead, they end up getting married.
Everyone wants Mr. Toad's Wild Ride.
Everyone does, yes. That in the quote in Clerks where he's, we're gonna need a bigger boat.
Salsa shark.
Salsa shark. Sharks in the salsa. Our shark. No, it was in my brain forever and ever and ever.
The things, okay, just to pause a little bit here, the things that are in my head that I don't even realize,
so
like
many.
I can't eat chips and salsa without thinking salsa shark, and not even, it doesn't even, I don't even think like, oh, I like that part in Clerks where it's it's immediate. It's immediate.
It doesn't even, I know what you mean. The connection doesn't even need to be made anymore. It's like, if I have a bunch of chips and salsa, I will immediately just be like, we're going to need a bigger boat. And not maybe even remember why I'm saying that. Anytime anyone talks about doing something someplace uncomfortable.
Oh, like the back of a Volkswagen?
Like the back of a Volkswagen. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like, it's just, and it's kind of obnoxious when you can't stop quoting these things, but it's not possible. Mm-mm. I'm sorry.
No, and there had been a little while, I think when I saw Mallrats in what that would have been 2021, probably for New Jersey as a world, 2022.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
I hadn't watched a Kevin Smith movie probably, in a long time, like years. There are movies I throw on, but but I was immediately shocked by how much I remembered 3 years ago, just by heart.
Yeah.
And that continued. I've since watched most of them since then. That kind of like reignited or kickstarted my like, I'll just throw these on.
Yeah. Mallrats famously his least positively reviewed movie. Everybody hated it.
It's so funny.
Except us. Except
funny.
his people. So then we went on to Chasing Amy, which, to be honest, you and I both took this as a chance to stretch our legs a little bit since we just covered it like not that long ago on this show. So I went and got a slice of pizza and ran to the ladies' room. And then you also got up for a bit.
I went to find somewhere to charge my cell phone.
That's right.
I ended up at an ice cream shop that only sold ice cream. This is more for New Jersey as the world. But I asked if I could buy like a cup of coffee or something because I didn't want ice cream. It was like 11 o'clock in the morning. And also
Kevin Smith had promised us ice cream because it was so hot in the theater.
Yeah, he said, we're going to get you guys some ice cream because it's so hot. But the person was like, you could just use the outlet. I don't care. She was so nice. And I sat down to charge it. And then I was looking at their ice cream and they had a sweet Jersey corn ice cream.
Hell yeah.
And what was I going to do, Jody?
You have to try it.
I had to try it. It was so good. So I took a walk to charge my phone and get some ice cream.
I want to shout out Julio's Pizza in Highlands. It was delicious.
Yeah, I ended up having it for dinner later. I had a pickle pie that was so good, and I had a slice of their margarita, which was also delightful.
Yeah, I had their veggie. It was really, really delicious. But then we both watched the second like 2/3 or the second 2/3.
Well, that was the other. The
last
2/3.
You got it. No, that's not a thing.
But that's the other thing about this is I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about the getting up and getting down, but it was fine. Everybody was doing it. It didn't. And the thing too is that like we know these movies so well that it's like I kind of knew at what point I was going to be in the movie when I walked back in, like how much I had missed and what was going to be happening. Yeah. So it was fine. Yeah.
And we covered this before, so I don't think we need to go into crazy detail here. It was fun to see it on the big screen again. It was the movie that we know it to be. Mm-hmm. But then,
Jody, I'm sure that I said this when we covered this movie. The only thing to me that matters about Chasing Amy still, the only thing that still where I can like, and it's got its own issues. What we're about to say, this character,
sure,
but I still have so much love for.
Mm-hmm. Hooper. He was there. It was so cool to see him. I know. We didn't know that they were even going to be special guests.
Yeah. No. So he said, Kevin said something like, you ready for your guest? You guys like Hooper? And everybody was kind of quiet for a second. Like, I don't think we realized what he was saying was that Mustafa Obafemi was about to
was actually there.
Walk out. And he did. So perfectly dressed.
He looked good. White suit, white hat, like just
such a personality. So he was everything you wanted him to be.
Like he was so sweet.
He was so sweet and funny and self-assured. Like Kevin said, like, I kind of wrote Hooper based on Mustafa. And like
he also indulged the audience. There's on Andrea, you posted it on your Instagram, right?
It's on my Instagram,
Yeah, at one point he had us all, or Kevin Smith, I think, had us all yell the question, what's a Nubian? Just so he could yell back at us, shut the fuck up.
Feels so good that Hooper has told me to shut the fuck up.
It's so good. When I was walking out after Chasing Amy to run to the bathroom, he was in the hallway taking pictures with people. And I looked at him as I walked by and I was like, you're the fucking best. And he was like, thank you so much. And I was like, you're just so great. I didn't want to stop and bother him because other people were waiting, but
I really don't get starstruck, but there's just something it's, you know what? Part of it is that Hooper has been part of my life for so long. And such a character. And also I think not knowing him in anything else except other Kevin Smith movies, like he just is such a like specific little bulb, like ball of good in my life that seeing him was really
and what I wanted to say to him And what I wanted to say to him that I didn't say because I had already felt like I had talked enough when I made my comment, not a question, was like the queer kids that watched Chasing Amy, as has been discussed in relationship to Chasing Amy, had a complicated relationship with Alyssa Jones. But I can't speak for anyone else. I just love Tooper. No complicated relationship there, just love. Like he was, especially him as the bartender.
I would wonder if a queer black man watching that movie might say the opposite.
Possibly.
Like I have a more complicated, and I can watch Alyssa and be less.
Yeah,
because
probably true.
Yeah, but
it just, I think she felt like somebody putting on queerness. He didn't.
Right. Well,
and that meant something.
Yeah.
He also grew up in Newark.
I didn't know that.
I'm looking at his
wow.
Wikipedia. Yeah, he went to the arts high school in Newark.
Because born in North Carolina.
Yeah, but they moved up when he was little.
Yeah, I see that now. Man.
Yeah.
Just the best. It really, absolute highlight. In a really great day, that was just the highlight. We did also learn, not only was Shannon Doherty supposed to be there, but so was Jason Mewes, but he had
COVID.
Oral surgery.
Oh, oral surgery. Someone else had COVID that couldn't go. I can't remember. I'm thinking of something else. Don't worry about it. Ignore that.
Oral surgery and couldn't be there. He's somebody who I might have been a little, again, I don't really get starstruck, but I think something about meeting Jason Mewes, I might have.
That's how I was with Kevin Smith. I mean, speaking of hallway interactions.
Yeah, I was not cool when we met him. I didn't say anything more than just like, hi, you're the best. Like, yes, we're having a great time. Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
I couldn't.
We walked out into the hallway and he was taking pictures with people. And I kind of wanted to ask for a photo, but I kind of didn't want to bother him. And then he's totally sensed that in me and was like, do you want to take a picture? And I was like, yeah, I do. He
was really nice about taking pictures. He also, when he asked, because he was like, oh, are you guys having, he touched my shoulder and was like, oh, are you guys having a good time?
Yeah.
And he seemed genuinely interested to know if we were. And I think if I were Kevin Smith and had the fandom that he does, I might at this point be a little tired of interacting with people.
Yeah.
Like us.
Yeah.
People like you and me.
Yeah.
But he seems like to genuinely care and be interested, and
he does.
It's really nice.
I think he also had a soft spot for Theater 3. Because we were the only ones that had.
He told us he did. You think? He flat out told us we were his favorite theater.
Because we stuck around through the heat.
Yeah, and also he said we were one of the. I forget exactly what his words were, but in my head he said something like we were the most delightful or something like that too. He's right.
Yeah, of course. We had and I will say I was worried about the theater being fully packed and being up against everyone shoulder to shoulder, and thankfully that wasn't the case. I think there were plenty of people that bought tickets way back and then for one reason or another couldn't end up making it.
Yeah, it was full enough that it didn't. I mean, it was full, but it was
but there was
room
a
to
seat
breathe
in between me and the person next to me, which was delightful.
Yeah,
because don't touch.
It wasn't sadly empty. It's just
no, not at all.
You didn't feel like you were packed in like sardines, which is great because it was quite warm for the first couple of movies.
Yeah, that would have made it a lot worse. So then we got to Dogma.
I really didn't.
I rewatched this pretty recently, so I was like,
yeah, I hadn't seen it in, years.
Yeah.
Still know it by heart.
Yeah.
By heart. I don't know how to really, I can't explain it, but it is, I saw this movie, like I said, 3 times in the theater. I was 13 years old. It's the first of his movies that I saw in the theater post already being obsessed with him. I think I've told you, I don't know if I said this when we covered Chasing Amy, but my best friend and I, who I met in 5th grade, our nicknames for each other were Nooch and Snoogans. like when I say Kevin Smith is important to me, it's not yeah. And so again, Dogma being the first movie that I watched at that age where I was kind of a contrarian and feeling smarter than Kevin Smith movies, you can tell they are the kinds of movies that even when they're making dick jokes, they still think they're the smartest person in the room.
Oh, yeah.
And I was that way too at 13 years old, of course. And so that movie just really speaks to me. It's also the most cartoony like feeling of them until you get to Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Yeah, no, it feels like there's an escalation in the like hijinks factor, you know, like they're on a train, they're on the road, and Chris Rock falls out of the sky, and there's like the movie whole, you know, setup, and there's Buddy Jesus or Buddy Christ. Yeah,
Buddy
it definitely
Christ.
feels, I know, Buddy Christ. But it feels like there's like this escalation. It's so, thinking about this as like a one after the other, like Clerks to Mallrats, we talked about the jump in like the star power, the, you know, going to color, filming on locations besides like where he actually worked, and then Chasing Amy being this sort of side quest, it feels like almost into like queerness.
Well, it feels like Mallrats not being the most critically beloved. I mean, these movies come out too quickly for this to be the case, but it feels a little bit like Clerks is kind of silly, Mallrats is really silly. He kind of like tries his hand a little bit at a more serious movie. Yeah. And then Dogma is kind of a combination where it's like so silly and so cartoony, but is also trying to wrestle with some more thoughtful, serious ideas to a degree in its own way. Yeah.
Had a pretty big cast.
Yeah.
He keeps adding more and more famous people to these casts. This one had Chris Rock, you know, George Carlin, Salma Hayek, Alan Rickman.
I didn't realize I was going to cry until...
Yeah, you got emotional about that.
I wasn't expecting it. I don't know what happened, but it just like... Yeah. I was like, oh no, I'm going to cry. Here it comes. He's just so good.
He is.
Everyone's having so much fun in this movie. You can really tell.
Oh my God, I know. And I remember having such a soft spot for him after he cast Alanis Morissette as God. If I was going to make a comment or a question or whatever in that Q&A, which I didn't because there were plenty of other people who wanted to, it would have been about that, because as a teenager who grew up right in the sweet spot for Alanis Morissette's rise to stardom and her rejection of it and all of that stuff, I could never imagine that choice in the first place. But once he made it, it was the only possible choice.
It's perfect. But I really I remember being 13, seeing that happen. And I don't know that I had ever been surprised that way in a movie before. Yeah. It was so unexpected. And then, like you said, but feels so right.
And shout out to you for your comment that she is a manic pixie dream god. As she's cavorting and doing cartwheels in the grass.
And she's wearing like her little like
tutu,
sparkly skirt, but with boxers underneath and making weird little noises and smell. She's so silly. Yeah. But it's so delightful.
It really is. It really is. And then the Q&A after this I thought was really interesting, because he talked a lot about his, which I guess some people have heard before, but I hadn't, about how George Carlin ended up as a part of the film, because he was such a huge fan for so long. Yeah. I mean, I don't think we can recap the entire story here, but what was really everybody was moved by was just the fact that, like, when it came time to kind of say yay or nay to this movie, George Carlin's wife had just died. And his big thing was like, I'm interested in being in the movie, but I'm not ready to take off my wedding ring yet. So can we maybe put a Band-Aid over it or something? And like, maybe the cardinal is just clumsy. Yeah. And Kevin Smith was like, you can do whatever the fuck you want, dude.
You're fucking George Carlin.
You can wear Band-Aids anywhere you want. Just please be in the movie. Like, oh my God. But just that story, like, everybody just kind of like, I don't know, like broke everybody's hearts.
It was really sweet. Yeah, so sad.
He's so perfect for that.
Oh, it's who else could if George Carlin had said no, who would it be?
Well, what was the thing he said? The last message that he got from George Carlin on his phone. It was something about how he was going into rehab. It was okay for him to talk about the fact that he was going into rehab. And then the very last sentence was like, oh, and fuck the Catholic Church.
Yep. He still has to.
Oh, God.
Just the best. Just the best.
Just the best.
And then it got, I mean, it was starting to get late. You had driven down the day before from Rhode Island. I had taken the train in that morning and you had picked me up. I mean, it was already a long day.
And the day before I had taken New Jersey Transit into the city and not gotten back until like 11:30 or 12. Like,
yeah,
I wanted to stick it out because I am a person that wants to commit to something crazy like that. Like, I used to go to the Del Close Marathon in New York at UCB at like 3 a.m.
Right.
But I'm in my late 40s and we just ended up kind of deciding that we were going to watch Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. We hopped out, got some food, came back, and we were going to watch Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back and then probably call it, because that was about, 9 o'clock at night?
Something
We'd been
like
there
that.
for 11 hours.
And we were more than halfway.
Yeah.
We made it well past the halfway mark, so I felt okay about that.
Yeah.
Also, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, he said it was his Muppet movie, and I was like, oh.
Totally.
100%. He said Mallrats was like his John Hughes film, which he's said before, and is so obvious that he's just making like a more crude John Hughes. But yeah, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back is a Muppet movie.
Moving
it's
right
a little
along.
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles too, but it's so a Muppet movie, and it, again, also very important to me.
It's so silly. I forgot how he said, I think you mentioned this already, he said this was the most Kevin Smith movie of all of the...
Yeah, I think he said the first 4 movies were him trying to make movies like other people.
That's what it was.
And this was the first one where he was making a movie like the guy who had made those movies.
Yeah.
Which
just
is
like quoting all of the movies that came before it, basically. But like, and celebrating that. You know?
Yeah. Well, because if you've seen Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, the last thing that happens is God, Alanis Morissette, closes the book on the View Askewniverse.
Right.
So I think in his head, this was the movie celebrating.
Yeah, this was
universe.
Supposed to be the period on the sentence, or the encompassing of the whole thing.
It's
in 2001.
super self-referential. Everything is sort of an inside joke or poking back at something else.
Came out a week before September 11th.
When he put that into context, I just hadn't really thought about it, but it's literally August 24th, 2001.
I know.
It's like one of the last pre-9/11 movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wild.
I know. And then, it was another 5 years before he went back to the Clerks well, and did Clerks 2.
Which I think is a really fun movie. It's silly.
If I'd had more energy, I would have stayed and watched that too. But it's kind of weird, like, being that I was just a tiny bit younger than these people when these movies were being made. Like, I think I'm 6 years younger than Kevin Smith. Watching them age on screen is like watching myself age, and it's really upsetting.
I know.
But it's also kind of comforting in a weird way because we're all in it together.
Yeah, that's true. Like, looking at especially in Mallrats, I think because it's the first one with like decent cameras and it's in color, Jason Mewes in particular looks like,
oh, he's like a baby.
Such a baby.
I know.
Such a baby.
I know. I forgot how, like, we talked about how Dogma is cartoonish. This is a full-on, like, Scooby-Doo.
Oh, when they're on
cartoon.
the movie set and they like crash into the painted
wall.
set, but then when there's another one they think they're going to crash into because it's clearly a painted window, but they actually do crash through.
Window.
Yeah.
No, it's a non-stop gag reel of movie tropes, and it's a lot of fun. I don't have the attachment to this one that I have to the others.
I mean,
it's just
no offense to this movie, which I think is, again, so fun to watch, so silly. I really did have a blast watching it. But what's
to attach yourself to?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Everyone in it is a cartoon of some kind. You know? Like, in the other movies, he's at least trying to explore some emotions. In this, the closest we get to that is, like, Jay and Justice in their ridiculous romance.
Also, just the fact that that Jay is Jay and has a love interest who seems to actually
boo boo kitty fuck.
So stupid.
We get our James Vanderbeek cameo.
I was so happy that perfect timing.
Yeah. Exactly. Just did
Jody,
Dawson's Creek.
Hey, how many episodes of The Creek have you watched?
So I was gone all weekend, so I didn't do any more. But I can tell you where I'm at right now. Let's see. Continue watching. I am on season 2, episode 10.
I'll be interested to see where you actually are when this episode comes out, because just for a peek behind the curtain for our listeners, we're recording this a couple of weeks before we're actually dropping it for you guys. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah, season 2, episode 10 so far. It's become my like studio show. Like when I'm working in my studio, I'll put it on because it doesn't require like intense concentration, but it's entertaining enough. Yeah.
That makes me so happy. Something that about these movies that we obviously know, and it's one of the delightful things about them, and one of the reasons it feels so, I mean, it's called the View Askewniverse for a reason, but watching them back to back, of how many little inside jokes that return and names, like Rick Derris being in all of that Alyssa Jones is mentioned first in Clerks. Like, there's so many of those little threads that like you kind of get the like pleasure of the Easter egg, where it's like you kind of get rewarded for paying attention to these movies and knowing them so well that you recognize all of those things as they pop up. It's really, I mean, it's sweet and fun, but it's also really just clever. It's really smart. Like if you want people to attach to your little universe, getting to feel like you're part of the inside joke of it all is really smart.
Well, and some of that inside joke has to do with like in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, the whole reason for their road trip is to stop the movie about Bluntman and Chronic from getting made because they're getting made fun of on the internet. It's like the most meta nonsense.
Right. The movie based on the comic from the movie 2 movies before. Like it's all so.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, Kevin Smith has been like a cult hero, but also like, you know, his movies have been ripped apart online too and made fun of. And so that's like another meta commentary.
What the fuck is the internet?
The last thing I want to mention that I wish I had had a chance to say this to Kevin Smith also was watching them back to back. I was reminded how fucking good the music is in these movies.
Yes.
And how it continues to, it's not like a set theme of this is the kind of music he likes, so this is the kind that's in the movie. It's all over the place. Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back end with fucking Morris Day and the Time, which is the best.
It's so funny. It's so good. It's so like joyful, that scene where they're
it's so great. They're like dancing with them on stage, and I wanted to ask him how he thinks about what music he puts in his movies, because it's so varied.
Yeah.
But it makes sense in the moment. I mean, like in Clerks, it's a lot of like, you know, what you would expect, 90s punk, stuff like that. But like Soul Asylum is in there. Alice in Chains. When that came on, I was like, it's just like, I can picture the scene in my head immediately. Bad Religion, which of course I love. But yeah, as we went through all the movies, I just kept every time being like, oh, that's right. Like the soundtracks for these are great.
And thoughtful. And even when they're not like the coolest, like Weezer, I think, is a supremely uncool band. I have loved them at various points throughout my life. But Suzanne is the perfect song for them. Like it just, it's like very thoughtful.
Well, I think that's what I like about it is like, he's not concerned with what songs are cool. He's got fucking Sublime in Mallrats.
Yeah.
You know, like
it just works and it's fun. And so I don't know how the rest of the event went. I know there were no other surprise guests, thankfully for me, because I would have been heartbroken.
I checked.
Yeah.
I would have been really sad.
But it was great. It was great. I had a lovely time. I would do it again. I would do it again. I would plan to stay in town or nearby, and I would take a power nap, probably during Clerks. Probably during Clerks too, a movie that I do really like, but is pretty long. So.
I probably would have taken my power nap during Chasing Amy. I didn't need to see it again.
For me, that's a little early in the day. That would have been the one.
True.
I don't know if that would have then sustained me through the rest of the night.
Yeah, I just have less. I've seen the Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back on, I've seen many, many less times than I've seen the first half. So
there's also less, like, other than Hooper, like, all of the movies have so much quotable stuff. Chasing Amy doesn't have as much of that. It's not as like invested in little moments the way that the other movies are. So
yeah, I don't know. All in all, I had a fantastic time, but we could not kind of keep it going past around 9 p.m.
I also, just thinking about it now, so we made it through Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, which I felt sort of bad because the drop off, I mean, the big drop off you think would be after Dogma, and then it would peter out after that, though there seemed to not be as much as I was expecting. I'm proud of us for making it more than halfway through. I'm thinking about it now. I didn't realize I was going to have as much fun as I was going to. I didn't realize Kevin Smith was going to come in after every movie.
Yeah.
And that the crowd was going to be so nice and friendly, and that it was going to be so lovely, and that we were going to have so much freedom to move around.
Yeah.
So I think I would have prepared. I didn't go in expecting to want to stay longer.
Yeah.
And I did want to stay longer. I just wasn't prepared for it. So I think that's maybe part of it too, is that I really would have prepared differently.
Yeah, I felt the same way.
We were walking into.
Yeah, because I also was worried I was going to get super restless, that I wasn't even going to want to make it through, like, halfway, that it was going to be...
We both kept saying to each other, even in the days leading up to it, like, we'll stay as long as whatever, no big deal.
Yeah.
Like, I'm excited we're going at all. If we make it through Dogma, I'll be thrilled.
Yeah.
And like...
Yeah.
And I just didn't end up...
Yeah, if we had planned it a little differently, knowing that it was going to be what it was, I definitely would have, like you said, taken a power nap during Chasing Amy or Dogma or something, and then come back for the evening part. Because I love a ridiculous challenge that matters to nobody.
Totally.
Staying until the end would have been that. But
I would have come up the night before so that I didn't have to travel first thing in the morning. Like, it was a true delight, a really good time.
Yeah, absolutely. And, even though, like, I don't know, they say don't meet your heroes. I wouldn't say Kevin Smith is my hero, but I have admired and loved his movies for a really, really long time. And it was really cool to get to meet him, even if it was brief, And it was such a, like, intimate theater setting. Uncomfortable seats, yes, but, yeah, it was sweet.
They were so low to the ground. It was really strange.
It was like sitting on the floor.
When we walked to the row we went to sit in, I almost stopped you because I was like, oh, these chairs are broken.
Yeah.
Like, I thought they were on the floor, but no.
No.
Very strange, but yeah.
Yep.
But also, man, what a dream life to be like, oh, my theater I grew up going to closed down. I'm just going to buy it and make it mine.
Yeah. Yeah, incredible. It was a really good time. So, yeah. I hope this wasn't boring for people who aren't our Jersey listeners, but, Kevin Smith movies have gotten beyond Jersey, I think. And
30-year anniversary of Clerks. Kevin Smith is being inducted into the New Jersey Hall of Fame. So, like, if we were going to spend some time talking about Kevin Smith, now's the time.
Exactly.
Hi. Hello. Andrea here. I told you last week that I would pop in and let you know what we're going to be watching next week on our review of hit 90s Nickelodeon kids show, Are You Afraid of the Dark? And we're going to be watching an episode from season 3, episode 6. It's called The Tale of the Watcher's Woods. I had a really hard time choosing which episode to watch because there are so many good ones. But I picked the one that I think is going to best fit into our conversation about I Saw the TV Glow in a few weeks. I love Are You Afraid of the Dark? I'm so excited to talk about it. I can't wait for everyone else to watch it. I would love to know everybody else's favorite episodes. I guess I can ask for that next week. I should stop talking now. You've been listening to us yammer on about Kevin Smith for the last hour, so I should free you. So yeah, Tale of Watcher's Woods, Paramount Plus. I think it's free on Amazon Prime, I think, but I think it's also available on Apple TV. It's in a few different places. It's not hard to find. It was hard to find when I bought all the DVDs on eBay, though. I'll tell you what. Okay. I'm going to go now. Back to Jody and I saying goodbye. Yeah, I'm so glad that you wanted to do this and that I wanted to do this and we were the only two who didn't punk out.
Seriously. I bought my own damn ticket too. Because I didn't think that people were going to punk out, and I was worried about there not being a ticket for me. So I bought my own. But definitely worth it. Worth the trip down. And yeah, where can people find us?
Standing out front of the Quick Stop.
Yep.
Also at WatchersPodNJ on Instagram.
WatchersPodNJ@gmail.com. They can find me on Instagram at Jodie_Mim, JODIE_MIM.
And I'm at AQAndreaQ. I haven't posted everything yet, but by the time this goes up, I probably will. I took some pictures, and there is a really lovely video, like you said, of Hooper doing the Hooper thing. And yeah, that's all.
That is all. That'll do it for us for this week. And try not to suck any dicks on your way across the parking lot.
You know, right?
37.